The Jaywalkers Recovery Podcast is meant to provide support and inspiration for those on a journey of recovery. We are not affiliated with any specific 12-step groups. Our goal is to share personal experiences and insights that may be helpful to listeners in their own recovery process. Please consult with a healthcare professional or therapist for personalized advice and guidance. Thank you for listening and welcome to the Jaywalkers Recovery Podcast.
Hi, everyone. This is Melissa. Thanks for tuning in to the Jaywalkers Recovery Podcast. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you the host of the show and my husband, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. My sobriety date is January 4th, 2007, and for that, I am truly grateful. I thought it would be good for me to tell my story to let the audience get to know me, since I'm going to be hosting the podcast and mostly just listening to people and guiding them through these recovery stories. So without further ado, I'd like to tell my story today. Like I said, I'm Kevin. I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict. And what it was like. Back in the 6th grade, I remember smoking a cigarette for the first time. Me and a friend stole some cigarettes from his dad, and we met up before school, smoked some cigarettes, and after we puffed on it for a little bit, I started to feel kind of buzzed and dizzy, and I just remember feeling wonderful, like, oh man, this is really changing the way I feel, feeling a little dizzy, and I really liked that feeling, and I couldn't wait to do it again. Fast forward when I turned 15, I remember some friends of mine had scored some brickweed, some really gross brickweed, and remember looking at it, and we were picking through it and picking out all the stems and seeds, and we packed a giant bowl, and we started passing the pipe around, and we were up in my friend's attic, just hot boxing it up there. And I remember, like, after the 3rd or 4th hit, I still wasn't high yet, and I just kept taking puffs off of it. And before you know it, I was high as a kite. And I just remember feeling like that was the best feeling I'd ever felt, and so euphoric and wonderful. And man, I chased that feeling. I couldn't wait to get my hands on some weed again and smoke another bowl. And fast forward to the same year, me and the same friends were staying the night, and my friend stole a bottle of wine from his dad. And we took the bottle of wine up to his room. We cracked the bottle. We start passing it around, taking sips off this wine. And before you know it, I start feeling real silly. And before you know it, the three of us polished off that bottle of wine, and we were sending my buddy back down to the basement to grab another bottle. And it was real late. He grabbed another bottle, and we started taking pulls off that. I remember laughing, having a great time. I don't ever remember going to bed, but I do remember waking up. And I do believe that was the first time I had ever blacked out from alcohol, and wouldn't be the last time. But I do remember waking up and just being so stoked to drink alcohol again. That was the best night of my life, and I couldn't wait to do it again. And moving into age 16, 17, 18, going through high school, every chance I could get, I was trying to find some alcohol, some weed, and trying to go somewhere isolated to drink it and have a good time. And I chased that good time all through high school and out of high school. I remember age 16, we moved high schools. We moved from one district to another district, and I had tried out for the baseball team, and I didn't make it on the team. And I really kind of got a case of the fuckets at that point. Started hanging out with a different crowd. We had a bunch of kids at my high school that played hacky sack and smoked weed in front of the school, and that was my crowd. I gravitated towards those people, skateboarders, hacky sackers, the guys who like to party on the weekends, and I created this host of friends that were into the same things and the party lifestyle that I was into. And so inevitably I moved out at age 17 with a friend of mine, and my friend and I shared an apartment together, and we started going to parties on the weekends and really liked to dance music. And once we got introduced into the dance scene, we started taking all sorts of, psychedelics, ecstasy, and I followed that high for many a years. I just remember the first time I got high at a party. It was like the greatest night of my life, and I couldn't wait to do it again. And it seemed like the longer I did drugs and alcohol, the potency of the high got less and less, and the consequences got greater and greater. And at some point, I just remember taking a whole bunch of drugs and it not getting me high anymore. And I was kind of forced to come to terms with the life on life's terms, and I really wasn't liking how it made me feel. A quick story about blacking out. I would drink on the weekend, and I would always wake up and my friends would say, "Dude, do you know what you did last night?" And at first it was cute, it was funny, and we'd laugh about it, the stupid things I'd do, and my friends would laugh with me, and inevitably it turned into like, "Dude, do you know what you did last night?" And that incomprehensible demoralization would set in over and over again, and I would just fear these stories. I wanted to quit drinking, I just didn't know how. So one night we went out to this fancy bar. My friend let me borrow a fancy button-up shirt that he just purchased. He purchased a bunch of new clothes. He was putting a new outfit on. He said, "Here, wear this shirt, bro. It's going to look good on you." I put this shirt on. I looked real nice, and we got all dressed up. We went down to the clubs in Portland, and once I got down there, man, I started drinking like a fish. I started drinking hard alcohol, mixed drinks, and really starting to get a buzz on. I'm on the border of a blackout at this point. And I just remember being on the dance floor, and I'm trying to dance with these girls. I'm getting shut down because at this point I'm kind of slobbery drunk, and I'm thinking, what is wrong with these girls? Why won't any of them dance with me? And I had this bright idea that maybe if I took my shirt off, these girls would see my physique, and surely they would want to dance with me then. And at this point, I had gone into almost full blackout. And my bright idea was to walk over to the table where my friends were at, unbutton my shirt, throw my shirt on the table, and go back out to the dance floor shirtless. Now, we're in a nice club in downtown Portland, like a cocktail bar with loud music, right? This isn't a place you take your shirt off to party. And so when I took my shirt off, I flung it onto the table where there happened to be a burning candle on the table, and the shirt went up in flames, and there goes Kevin back to the dance floor to dance with these ladies. Now, I don't remember if any of them danced with me, but I do remember in the morning when I woke up, everybody telling me, "Dude, do you know what you did last night?" And obviously I got kicked out of the bar. And, that was one of those times where I woke up and I didn't feel really well, and I didn't like the story that everyone was telling me. I'm like, really? I did that? Man, I feel like an idiot. And it was kind of funny at the time, but deep down, I knew that I had a problem with drugs and alcohol, and I did not know how to stop. And fast forward, I could go on story after story of me making a fool out of myself. But, it seems to me that every time I would try a new drug, I would love the effects of it. And I would do that new drug or alcohol until the effects started to wear off. And then it just wasn't enough for me. So then I would move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it was never enough. And then finally one day I got introduced to heroin. And I just remember shooting up heroin for the first time. And I got so high, I started puking everywhere. And I was throwing up all night. I shot up, I started throwing up. I threw up all night. I fell asleep. And I woke up and I couldn't wait to do it again. And it was insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I chased that for 3 years. So in 2003, I started using heroin every day. And, you know, those of you that have used before know that at first heroin gets you really high, but eventually you need heroin to sustain and stay well. And that was me. After about 6 months of using, for the next 2.5 years, I would do anything I could in my power to get heroin and use heroin to stay well, to function, to feel normal. And, you know, if you don't get any, you start to go into withdrawals. And, you know, withdrawing from heroin's a horrible feeling. And you know that anytime you use, you can get rid of those feelings of withdrawal. The withdrawal effects would last up to a month, you know, 3 to 6 weeks of restless leg syndrome, vomiting, diarrhea, no energy, fatigue, sweating, feeling cold. You just feel like you have the worst flu of your life every day. And you know, if you use again, you feel better. It was an awful, awful time in my life. At some point, I had had enough, and I knew that I needed help. And at the time, I didn't believe in God, but I inevitably hit my knees, and I called out to God for help. I hit my knees, I started crying and weeping, and I called out to God for help. I said, Lord, please help me. Please get me out of this addiction. What should I do? And I knew I needed to call my mom and ask for help. And fortunately for me, I had a loving mother who was waiting for that phone call for years. And within 6 hours, she had picked me up and already had a bed for me at a detox 10-day inpatient treatment center in Portland. And so we drove down there, and I just remember this sense of relief. I felt so much relief in the car heading to get help. Finally, I'm going to get help. But at the same time, I was in so much fear that I was never going to have fun again. The party's over. There's no way for me to have fun again. Everybody knows I'm an addict now. I can never use or drink again without people judging me. Oh, there's that addict. There's that alcoholic. Oh, he's using again. Here we go. And once I got to treatment, I started to feel this sense of hope. And when I was in treatment, some gentleman came in and shared his story. He was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He had 5 years continuous sobriety at the time. And I just remember sitting on the edge of the seat, rubbing my knees, listening to his story, because his story was my story. He was an alcoholic, and I was an addict and an alcoholic, but his story was my story. I immediately looked for the similarities and not the differences. And there were so many similarities. And that share gave me hope. And later on in that week, while I was there in the inpatient treatment center, we were taken to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting outside of the treatment center. And we went over to the hospital to a meeting. There was a lot of people there. It was 40 to 50 people. And there was a gentleman. It was a birthday meeting. There was a gentleman with 3 years there sharing experience, strength, and hope. And what I saw was that the guy showed up in a collared shirt, tie, nice slacks, nice suit, with a big smile on his face. He looked successful. He looked happy. And he was surrounded by successful people that looked happy. Not at all what I thought I would see at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And I saw people bringing him flowers and presents and cake and coins. And I could just see hope. I could just see people, the color in everyone's eyes, and I wanted what they had. So when I got out of treatment, I started doing meetings and 12 steps like an alcoholic. I went, it was suggested to me that I go to 90 meetings in 90 days. I went to 120 meetings in 90 days. I couldn't stand being with myself, by myself. I was going to a 6 a.m. meeting every morning, and I couldn't sleep. So I would do a noon meeting, and then sometimes I would hit the midnight meeting. I'd go home, I'd try to sleep, and then I was back at the West Side Service Center for a 6 a.m. meeting. And I just couldn't stand being in my head and being by myself. And over there, I found my people. I'd hang out. I'd, go to another meeting with someone else. And I just remember, feeling some relief finally. And there was a gentleman at the West Side Service Center that I met named Aaron that touched my heart. Aaron and I met up every morning at the meetings. We'd meet at his place and my place, have big book studies, read the big book together. And, Aaron struggled just like I struggled. He had a little more time than me at the time. But I'd relapse and he'd relapse and we'd end up back there and just struggling. And then I remember Aaron not being there in the morning and trying to call him, couldn't get a hold of him. And, this disease is cunning, baffling, powerful. Aaron was found in his garage hanging by a rafter. And this was about 60 days for me. And it really hit me hard. This disease is very serious. And I knew I needed to make this a huge part of my life. And I knew that this disease would kill me if I went back out. And sometime in my first 90 days, a friend of mine that I used heroin with on the daily, Jesse, this is the story I was told. Jesse went to his mom's church. His mom kicked him out. Jesse decided to join his mom at his church on the weekend. And Jesse, confessed his sins in front of the church. And his mom had kicked him out. And after church service, he ended up going and staying with one of the members at their house to get his shit back together. And Jesse ended up relapsing at their house and overdosed that night and died. And that was two very close people to me that died within 90 days of me getting sober. And you know what? It gave me fuel for the fire. I was super sad. I was super hurt. I didn't know how to deal with my feelings. And, I feel like it's just an uncomfortable state of mind that you're in when you're new, you're bleeding, and you're vulnerable, and you don't know how to deal with your emotions. And, I always say, you need to practice being uncomfortable. And that's all it is, We used to drown out our uncomfortableness with alcohol and drugs. And now that we don't have those, we need to learn healthy ways to cope with stress, feeling uncomfortable. I feel like going to meetings, you're practicing being uncomfortable, having an awkward conversation with a stranger, putting yourself out there, talking to the newcomer. And, it's just an uncomfortable conversation. And, time goes by, the more you practice being uncomfortable, the more you get comfortable talking. The more you get comfortable in your sobriety, the more you get comfortable in your own skin. That's all I ever wanted, was to be comfortable in my own skin. And I learned how to do that in Alcoholics Anonymous, one day at a time. So moving forward in my first, 6 months of sobriety, I took a service position with at a men's group called Low Men's Group. Shout out to Low Men's. And quite possibly saved my life. I remember being at the 6:30 a.m. meeting, and I was asked to be the secretary of that meeting, and some time went by. I'd done it for 3-4 months or something like that. And I remember my life getting put back together. And I was starting to get these thoughts like, hey, this meeting at 6:30 is really a drag. I need to get rid of this thing because, I'm just too busy. I'm just too busy for this meeting, So I'm talking with one of the elders at the group saying, you know what, we need to find someone else to run this group. I'm just too busy with my work and whatnot to make it here by 6:30. And that gentleman could see right through my bullshit. So, he comes back to me and says, the 6:30 meeting, it sounds like you can't make it. Do you think you could make the 8 o'clock meeting? And well, yeah, I could make the 8 o'clock meeting. He's like, well, we've all decided that you're going to be the secretary of the 8 o'clock meeting. So these guys locked me in for a year service commitment to a low men's group. And, I was a secretary of a low men's group for a year, and it quite possibly saved my life. I was accountable to a group of men. I was in front of a powerful room of men, 40 to 50 deep every week, and a lot of sobriety in that room. And I had to learn people's names quick because when you sit in front of the room and everyone knows your name, but, people come up to you after the meeting, hey, Kevin, and you don't know their name yet because you have 50 names to learn, and you start to learn names really quick. And I started to make a lot of connections. And then I remember getting on Thursday night, I ended up getting a coin position in front of a mixed meeting called Horizon. Shout out to Horizon Group. And, I was sitting in the front of 2 big meetings. That was a 40 to 50 people meeting, and I cultivated some very close relationships. A lot of people who I know are still clean and sober and still see around at the meetings today. And some people with a lot of time, and some dear friends in these groups that I make. And so 9 months into my recovery journey, I went on a cruise with my family. My mom paid for a cruise for me, my brother, my dad. And I just remember being excited to go on this cruise. And I get on the cruise, and I have at this time, I have around 9 months of sobriety. And, I don't know that I was quite spiritually fit to be on this boat, but there was a lot of, alcohol flying around. And I was kind of like on my own there, had my dad, my mom, my brother. And, the cruise was to Jamaica, Ocho Rios, Jamaica, and 2 other spots. And I remember stopping in to Jamaica and getting off, and my brother had smuggled 3 joints back onto the ship. And, the first joint, my brother was like, hey, man, you want to go up top and smoke a joint with me? And I'm like, no, man, I'm cool. And so the second joint, I knew he was going to smoke it. And, he went up and smoked the second joint. And a little bit later on the ship, my brother's like, hey, man, I got his last joints from Jamaica. Never going to get an opportunity again. And I was like, nah, well, all right. No one will know. I'm on this ship. I'm in another country. No one will know. And so we went up to the top, and I took a big puff off that joint, and immediately I felt so high. I felt very ashamed. Instantly, the paranoia set in. I felt horrible. I was like, man, and I went upstairs. Of course, every ship has a buffet with endless amount of food and desserts. So I went up and destroyed the buffet. And, they had the soft serve ice cream, all you can eat. I filled up a couple coffee cups full of ice cream, shoved a bunch of cookies in there, and I'm double fisting coffee cups of ice cream. I'm walking down this very narrow hallway with blood torched eyes, feeling very paranoid. Everybody knows I'm high. Feel like I'm on mushrooms. And And then down the hall, I see my mom's coming towards me. And I'm like, shit, I got to pass my mom. And I'm walking down the hallway. I walk in, I get up to my mom. My mom says hi. And my mother didn't say anything, but I can tell that she knew that I was high. And I just felt so ashamed of myself. So that was my last relapse, January 4th, 2007. And I learned a huge lesson there. I learned that I can't use anything in my life. I can't drink, I can't smoke, I can't use anything to change the way I feel. My only option was to pour into this program wholeheartedly. I learned a lesson every relapse. I feel like I was able to, at first I was like, okay, well, I see the steps here. I see that you guys are suggesting that I get a sponsor. I see that you tell me I need to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. I think that's probably good for you guys, but not really good for me. And every relapse, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I will get a sponsor. Maybe I will start listening to his suggestions. Maybe I will make my God, something more important than a pack of smokes. Maybe I'm not as unique as I think. And, I really started to pour into this recovery journey. 1 year into sobriety, me and a friend of mine went whitewater rafting. And it was me, him, he was in recovery, and then there was 2 guys that were military guys. And the 4 of us decided to rent a boat and float down the Deschutes River. It's a 13-mile stretch. And while we were floating the river, I got inspired. I said, man, we ought to start a clean and sober raft trip. And, I just remember just getting so inspired. And, I kind of drew up a little business plan for it. And, here's where we'll get the rafts from. Here's where we'll camp. And, that next year, I set up and started the first annual clean and sober raft trip, where we had 28 people who are all clean and sober, camp together, make food together, and float down this 13-mile stretch with 3 Class 3 rapids and 1 Class 4 Rapids Oak Springs. And it was a blast. We had 28 people our first year, and I just remember serving, and it was like the highlight of the year. And the next year, the raft trip grew up to 56 people. We had 8 boats floating down. And talk about herding cats, trying to get 8 boats to launch with 7 to 8 people in each boat to launch at the same time, so we could meet up halfway and pull over to, eat our lunch together and then relaunch in the bottom of the boat so that we could make it down there and return the boats and get in the shuttle. It was a whirlwind. And today our group is continuing the tradition. We're about to do our 17th year clean and sober raft trip. And it says in the book, we're not a glum lot. And I truly believe if I wasn't going to have fun in sobriety, that I wasn't going to stay sober, and I'm always looking for ways in sobriety to live life to the fullest, maximize this life. And, that time when I was in treatment where I thought all the fun was over, I haven't even had any fun up until that point. I mean, I did have a lot of fun drinking and using and going to parties, and there was a period in my life where that was the only thing I knew to be fun was to lose my inhibition and just get lit, and eventually that wore out itself. And the fun I have in sobriety is genuine fun that I remember. And I make memories that I'll remember my entire life. And, fast forward 3 years into sobriety, my mom had a little church congregation, and they had asked us to start a AA meeting in her church called Keep It Simple. And, me and my wife started our first meeting there. It was a mixed meeting. And I just remember showing up, there'd be like 6 people, and we just kept spreading the message. And, and next thing you know, there's 12 people and 18 people and 20 people and 25 people. And, and that meeting grew, and that meeting still continues today. This journey recovery is phenomenal. We, 5 years into sobriety, I left out the part where, I met my wife in AA. The first time I tried to say hi to her, she walked right past me, and like she couldn't hear me, and she actually didn't hear me. And I was like, well, fuck her. She walked right by me, and I was like, oh my God, I feel like an idiot. I got no game in sobriety. I have zero game. Back when I used to drink, I thought I had game. You get drunk and you can talk to anybody and you're the life of the party. But when you get sober, man, things get a little harder. Your forehead starts sweating. You have anxiety. You're second guessing yourself. And, I finally put myself out there to say hi. Well, fast forward, she did like me, and we ended up connecting and hanging out and setting some healthy boundaries with each other. And this was early in sobriety. It was suggested that we not get together until we both had a year of sobriety. But I didn't see that anywhere in the book. So I, thought that as long as we set some healthy boundaries that, we would survive, right? And we did. And 5 years in sobriety, me and my wife got married in Oregon City at a beautiful venue. We invited, mostly people from AA to come join us. And, and then we bought a house together. All the things that I thought I would never do, we ended up buying a house and moving in together and building our house up how we like it and making it nice. And, and we started a business in that house. I started my painting business. And the most wonderful thing that we ever did was have 2 wonderful children. I had my first daughter, Ruby, and my second daughter, Isla. They're 4 years apart. And, a friend of mine named Charles says we're just like 2 kids playing house. I love you, Charles. And, and that's what we're doing today. And I think that this sobriety thing is a really cool deal. Today, I am a big advocate of men's meetings. I have to give a shout out to my home group, Captain's Table Men's Group in Hillsboro. This is a group of men that's 40 deep every week, and we are a powerful group of men. And if you're a man in sobriety or you're looking to get sober, find yourself a good men's meeting and surround yourself and become a part of. Because these men will save your life time and time again. And you will get blessed to hear a lot of the men in my group, because most of the men I'm going to bring on the show and feature their stories, because we have some really wonderful, powerful men. And I would say, lastly, if you're new in sobriety, or, you need some hope, or you just can't stop drinking, you just need to look deep inside and do the next right thing. And intuitively, you need to ask God to help you do the next right thing. I think that you can look deep down inside, and if you're truly living in the moment, in God's moment, that you will intuitively know what the next right thing is to do to keep you sober. And find a list of AA meetings. If you're a man, find a good men's meeting. If you're a woman, find a good women's meeting. And find a good mixed meeting. Find a meeting, and then when you get there, ask for phone lists and ask those people, hey, where's the best meetings each day of the week? Have someone write out the best meetings. and start going to all those meetings and find the meetings that you resonate at. You know, it's you know, not all the meetings are going to do it for you. And you have to keep going to meetings until you find your people, you find your meeting, you find your style. And when you find it, you'll find it. You'll resonate with those people, and you'll start the journey of recovery. Thank you for sticking around to the end and listening to the Jaywalkers Recovery Podcast. Please share this episode with a friend. Have a blessed day.